My name is Caitlin Johnson, and I'll be going over the events that evolve bilingual education programs. First, we have in 1923, Meyer versus Nebraska. So, in this Supreme Court case, it was ruled that the Nebraska law forbidding foreign language education violated our rights. This case established state authority to control the language of instruction in public school districts. So how this would affect an English language learner would be they now don't have a say in what language they're being taught in. But the court did protect the right of the parents to organize after school and weekend heritage language classes for their children. So they still have other outlets to get the information and get the education, but it's not going to be in public school districts. Next, we have Brown versus Board of Education in 1954. This case outlawed segregated schools because they didn't align with equal education. The effect that this case had on English language learners is that now they were not to be separated from the rest of the students. While this may seem like a good idea at first, the mainstreaming of these students was problematic because now they had unequal opportunities to succeed due to the lack of accommodations and tools that they needed. Next, we have the Title VI Bilingual Education Act. This lasted from 1968 to 2002. It was a bill that provided federal funding for bilingual programs within school districts. It was a very competitive grant process, so because of this, most regulations associated with this only apply to funded programs. The original bill only applied to Spanish-speaking students. As the proposition became known, more people were recognizing it and also proposing, and it came out to 37 more proposals. So this act was a combination of all of them. This bill allowed for inclusion of all English language learners. Okay, so next we have a very important case. It was in 1974 in California. It was a Supreme Court case, Lau versus Nichols. It started in 1970 when a lawyer, Edward Steinman, learned that a client's child was failing their classes solely because they were not able to understand the language of instruction. So, in this case, the end result was mandated bilingual education. So that was a fantastic turn for English language learners because now it was mandated. Going on from that, the Supreme Court case ruling of Lau versus Nichols became law with the Equal Education Opportunities Act of 1974. So this was when it officially became law. So this next case was in 1981 in Texas, Castaneda versus Pickard. And the general idea of this case was a school district did not meet the requirements of the Equal Education Act of 1974, but the court did not support the demands that were being asked. The outcome of this case was positive for English language learner students. It was a 3-pronged test to determine if schools are taking the right steps to address the needs of English language learners. So now it's required and it's being implemented. In 1998 in California, Proposition 227 went into place. What this did was eliminate most bilingual education in California. The places that were excluded from that were San Francisco and San Jose. So this had a major turn on English language learners in California because they were stripped of their rights to get the tools they needed to be successful in school. So we will loop around to this one in a couple of slides. Next we have the No Child Left Behind Act of 2001. So Title I was titled Improving the Academic Achievement of the Economically Disadvantaged. So this had a very heavy emphasis on the accountability through testing in English and mathematics, 3rd through 8th grade, and science, 3rd through 12th grade. The act included that all ELLs would be included in the state test, and the state test must provide accommodations for the students. One of the main purposes of this act was to close the achievement gap between students and provide all children with fair, high-quality education. So, included in providing equal, high-quality education for all children would be having appropriate accommodations for English learners and making it fair so they have the chance to succeed just like all of the other students. Also included in the No Child Left Behind Act of 2001 is Title III of that, which is Language Instruction for Limited, English Proficient, and Immigrant Students. So this actually replaced Title VI Bilingual Education Act. It provided grants to state education agencies. There were, within this Title III, there were no distinctions between bilingual and non-bilingual programs. But it did require that English language learners be enrolled in language instruction education programs. I think the goal of this act was to just set universal standards. So the state testing, it all had a universal standard, so we were all on the same page. The goal of this act also was to give students proper teachers. So we have to be certified in our subject area to be able to teach. So in theory, that would help close all achievement gaps, which, like before, was a goal and a purpose of this act. And another goal is to ensure all students reach proficiency. So with that, that's why the goal includes the accommodations for the ELLs and the language instruction programs. So the idea between all of the substance of these were to improve and unify student achievements. Okay, so Proposition 58 was in 2016 in California. It was titled English Proficiency Multilingual Education. This proposition overturned the Proposition 227, which we talked about before. It ensured that all students become proficient in English. So it involved dual language immersion programs. And these dual language immersion programs were for native and non-native English speakers. So this kind of took us in a circle from going from Proposition 227 to Proposition 58. Here are the references I used, and thank you for listening.